Welcome to BrickTrains, and I'm Joey. So today I have a train, believe it or not, here on BrickTrains. So this is an interesting little train. Um, this is this is a mock that I've done, and it is based off of they call this a dummy, or it's a steam engine. It's a small steam engine, and they, for these interurban railroads, they built a cab around it, basically so that I guess you wouldn't scare the horses and the other things that were going on. This railroad existed. It was the Evansville Railroad Company in 1907, and it ran until 1918. And this particular railroad ran between Evansville and Newburgh, so there were Evansville would have been a river port. Newburgh is on a river too, but the passenger part of this would have ran between those two towns and several other little towns that don't even exist anymore. I don't even know if you would really call them towns, more as like neighborhoods. Um, the reason that I kind of started this, and well, let's get some history. The Evansville Railroad Company, like I said, 1907 to 1918, and then in 1918 it was sold and became the Evansville and Ohio Valley Railroad Company. So the Ohio Valley, if you're not from around here, is kind of considered this whole area, the Evansville. Uh, the, we live on the Ohio River. I actually live in Mount Vernon, which is west of Evansville. But we live on the Ohio River, and the whole area is kind of considered the Ohio Valley because of the Ohio River. So there were a ton of little railroads back and forth between like Mount Vernon, my town where I currently live, to Evansville where I grew up, to Newburgh, Petersburg, all these little towns. Any rate, in the neighborhood that I lived, there was a grass field. I don't know, it was about 15, 20 feet wide, and it ran between two blocks, just in the middle of the town. All, normal World War II track homes, and all the baby boomers living there. And here's this just grassy field. Somebody's mowing it every once in a while. It's basically adjacent to a playground and a pool that we frequented. And my dad always said, well, that used to be a railroad there. Huh. Okay. Well, my dad wouldn't have been old enough to remember this railroad either. It would have been abandoned before his time too. But as a kid, he grew up in that area. He would have probably seen more remnants of the railroad before it was abandoned in 1946. Okay, now fast forward to I'm an adult, and I, I like trains and looking for things to build, MOCs. What can I build? And I ran across this Evansville and Ohio Valley Railroad, and sure enough, part of the terminus and part of the track ran very close to my neighborhood. I think could that railroad be the same tract of land, that grassy field? It turns out it more than likely is that was part of that railroad. It very much could have been part of another railroad. They interconnected and all this. The documents back then are very sketchy, and the people who originally kind of documented this stuff on the internet, a lot of that stuff is kind of, as the railroads are, a lot of those things are abandoned now. So the information is there on the internet on some of these Evansville history web pages, but they're not being updated, and some of this information is almost 20 years old, and I don't know how accurate it is. We have a very excellent library here in town, well, in Evansville, that documents the town and the Ohio Valley history, and I probably need to take a tour of that library, or not a tour, but go to the library and get some more information on this railroad. So that's enough of the history of the railroad, or maybe it's not enough of the history of the railroad, but it's about all I know. what I know is this engine here, and I believe I have some footage, and hopefully I'm going to roll that, of an engine very similar to this, locomotive very similar to this, at the St. Louis Transportation Museum. And we had the family who had just visited over there, but me and my wife had been over before, and I believe I got some footage of this little engine, this little dummy engine they call it. I got a couple reference photos I'm going to try and show you there. The reference video or reference footage, the reference picture that I have of this car basically shows it as an open air excursion car. Of what I can see in the picture and from what very little information I have, we're talking about a car that would have been very similar to what you would see at like Disney or Six Flags. The trains running around, they're just open. You can see here, you just have posts and places to sit. This is one of my early train MOCs, so the scaling on this is a little skewed. This would have been narrow gauge. This would have been small, but unfortunately, it's probably a little too tall because I tried to make it minifig scale, and I probably need to do a little work on it and get the 6 wide. It stayed in the 6 wide, but anyway, it visually it looks like it, and when I'm running it on the layout by itself, it looks okay. When I start running it against some of the other trains, it's probably a little bigger than it needs to be. This one, it's set up. This may be a mistake. I'll try and pull it in there. We got the little driver in the front, and this one is set up to run power functions, so it's battery operated. I currently have the battery pack and the IR receiver pulled out. The IR receiver, I actually put it inside here, and it couldn't get the signal real well, so it was always it was a little hard to control with the power functions. So I'm kind of hoping to switch it over to powered up, although it's probably on the back burner on getting that done. But the powered up I have plenty of room for the power pack inside, but I don't need the infrared receiver since it's Bluetooth. Let's see if we can. I don't think I can take that off easily. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. If I take that off, all the windows become loose. I didn't plan well for opening it up and changing the batteries out for it. The drive mechanism here is kind of unique. It's supposed to look like steam. It would have actually been kind of a steam engine running backwards, if you will. So a lot of the mechanicals were hidden underneath. Let's see if I can get a little bit of a shot. So I tried to represent what would look like a little bit of drivers there. There's obviously no motion. I am cheating here. I'm actually using I always called those the space hinges, because when I was a kid growing up playing with them, the space sets use this hinge to connect the trailers and stuff. I know they used it in town and used it in everywhere. It was a very popular little hinge or hitch, ball and socket joint, but it actually worked really well here on this set for my pilot truck. The color scheme, again, I was trying to pick colors that would have kind of gone back there in the early 30s. So that sand green and some orange and brown. I have no color pictures, so I am honestly just guessing. I did reference a picture somewhere, or not a picture, but I referenced some information somewhere that the locomotive was described as being a dark or hunter green. Forest green, I believe it was hunter, or dark green, I believe is what it was referenced as a dark green. Around here, a very popular color, and maybe it's popular everywhere for this time frame, was what was called Essex green, which was almost black. But you know, it was a green. So I used Lego's dark green to model the little dummy engine here. So got a little bit of a smokestack there, and obviously we got the bell on top. So we'll move the camera up there and get that. Got the bell and a little bit of a smokestack, and then we also have on the back side we have the lantern, and on the front the lantern. This lantern on the real one, and again there should be some images of it, of the source material that I used. This lantern would have been probably twice this size, but just for mocking it up here in the Lego, I thought that looked pretty good. It looks a little bit more scaled. Again, I'm not a precise rivet counter. I work with what I can figure out, and if I add more detail or try to add more detail, you know, I'm always wanting to strive to make it better, but I usually get too impatient, and I want the wheels under it and something that looks halfway decent, and let's run it, because I'm always about running it. So, all right, that is my Evansville and Ohio Railroad Company open air excursion car in dummy steam engine. Thanks for watching. Okay, so if you just sat through all of that, there's no way I'm not going to have a comment contest. So, what year did the first 9-volt Lego train come out? First correct answer in the comments.